Hey, good morning, my friend, and welcome back to the fourth hour. It's nice to have you along again today. I appreciate it. We have got more regarding the man who stands accused of the killing of Brian Thompson. His lawyer was on ABC this morning. Here we go. I think I want to make sure I start with this one. I want to show you this one first. So his lawyer was on with George Stephanopoulos this morning, who was on Good Morning America, and is saying of the gun that his client was caught with. A lot of guns look the same. They're 3D printed guns. He said, I have not been made aware of any evidence that links the gun that was found on the person to the crime. So these are things we're looking to see. He said, today is another day. We're looking forward to beginning our inquiry as to what evidence may or may not be out there. And he said the shooter's taking it as well as he can, trying to see if there's anything else of interest. So he said he has constitutional rights, which in fact he does. And I would like to make certain that we see his rights protected. He has constitutional rights. And that's what he's doing in challenging the interstate transfer. And I think also, looking at likely spending the rest of his life in jail, is not all that attractive, I think, to many. So that's, I think that's also what he's about. But there's a story now this morning. This is this morning from CNN. Fingerprints match between Luigi Mangione and Prince found at the scene of the killing. So let's see what they're saying here. The first positive forensic match, investigators say, tying Mangione to the crime scene. So CNN now has reached out to Mangione's attorney for comment. So that is... And I think this is what we'll see. That we'll see more and more evidence that will be collected. First, it was a manhunt. There was a lot of attention on the manhunt and finding Mangione. Okay, so now he is under wraps. He is in custody. And so now I think you're going to see that investigation now expand. And we will see there's going to be more evidence that will be collected. And I think, we'll just go from there. We'll see what winds up happening. And again, he's innocent until proved guilty. But the evidence that's being found so far and what we've seen so far, it doesn't look good for Mangione. All right, let's see what else is going on. This is an interesting story from Politico. I want to get off the Mangione story because I think we've spent a lot of time talking about that. This is a story from Politico. Politico.com. For Trump's allies, rhino hunting season is in full swing. And this might appeal to a lot of you. So Iowa Senator Joni Ernst came there was a raft of criticism from Republicans in her home state of Iowa. Senator Bill Cassidy, he's one of the 4 senators who voted to convict Trump in his 2021 impeachment trial, now facing a formal primary challenge. Moderate senators, they are not moderates. They're liberals. Sorry, Susan Collins. Sorry, Lisa Murkowski. You're not moderate Republicans. You're liberals. So they're starting to catch some heat from party activists. And I wonder if this kind of thing needs to take place because my use of the term rhinos, how many of us are talking about Republicans in name only? Those who really don't, when they need to be counted on, I call them squishy. They're squishy at best when you need them. Republicans just cannot count on them. And so among Trump's MAGA faithful, am I one of the MAGA faithful? I asked myself that question as to whether I'm one of the MAGA faithful. I am committed to Donald Trump as long as he is pursuing things like he has talked about, the border and people who are in the country illegally and all of those kinds of things. It's not Donald Trump that I'm faithful to. It's not MAGA that I'm faithful to. It's this country and those ideals. And what Donald Trump is representing right now are a lot of the ideals that the country was actually founded on, So, but rhinos, hunting down rhinos, Steve Deese, an Iowa-based radio talk show host, is considering challenging Joni Ernst. Said the pressure valve is now pointed in the direction of the Senate. The Tea Party was not nearly as organized as the Trump movement is. Absolutely true. And I don't mean that to denigrate the Tea Party, because what we were seeing were the beginnings of some of this stuff. I think the Tea Party, I think the MAGA movement owes a lot to the Tea Party. So this is interesting. Charlie Kirk, here we go. South Dakota's own Senator Mike Rounds. And I saw this. I think I mentioned it to you previously. Charlie Kirk issued a warning to Senator Mike Rounds for saying he had no complaints against the current FBI director that Trump wants to oust. In fact, did you see that he will likely resign? The FBI director likely will resign. I should have found something on that for you. Sometimes I see so many stories that it's like, oh, I gotta do something with that. And then it's like all this news just, I feel like I'm buried in it some days. So this is interesting. There's the aforementioned Senator Mike Rounds. Senator Kevin Cramer in North Dakota. I don't think it makes more loyal senators out of people. Senators are not slouches. I don't know many wimpy senators, he said. He said, we got elected too. And in a case like Susan Collins, she wins overwhelmingly in a state that Donald Trump doesn't carry. How do you not give her that room? Yeah, I don't know. Trump's allies are trolling Ernst on social media. So they recruited Iowa's attorney general to write an op-ed backing Trump's nominees. And Byrd, unlike Ernst, backed Trump through the primary process. Yeah, Joni Ernst was squishy on Trump in the primary process because I talked to her. That's not coming secondhand. That was coming from her. So it's interesting. Yeah, see, Edgy, I kind of agree with you. That would be a great starting point. And what Senator Cramer is saying about Murkowski, I just don't know about that. David saying, I consider myself conservative in regard to government. That makes me MAGA. Government has gotten too big. Totally agree. Now, am I out campaigning for Donald Trump? It might sound like it sometimes, but I haven't been. I don't go out, knock on doors. I don't involve myself in the political process other than through the radio show and, expressing my thoughts with you, as we all have got thoughts about the political process. But I do not go out and work specifically on behalf of any candidate. I haven't done that for a number of years. I just don't. But the rhino hunting, it'll be interesting to see what comes of that. Edgy, I totally agree with you. And that's part of what I like about Donald Trump, American exceptionalism. And in fact, I've used that term on the air a number of times, and it's because of Trump. It's Trump who's talking about it, and has made that, I think, for many of us, more of a household word than it had been previously. American exceptionalism. That's exactly, I think, what so many. Yeah, that's it. That's it. It's what so many of us are looking for. That seems to me to be the whole basis of MAGA. Totally agree about that. So I appreciate your comments. I don't have a lot. There was one other story, and these are stories that are happening this morning in regard to the Secret Service. Apparently, one of the things they are considering is limiting the protection of foreign leaders. In other words, than to provide more protection to the president. So this is one of the things. It's a 180-page report by the Bipartisan Task Force released yesterday. One of the most detailed looks so far. And they're talking about the failures of the Secret Service and so on. The Secret Service's zero-fail mission allows no margin for error, let alone for the many errors described in this report. So do you start then limiting Secret Service protection to foreign leaders to make sure that the Secret Service can fulfill their primary mission, which is, protecting the president as well as others in the, others in the federal government? That's kind of a great question. It'll be interesting to see if that story gets some more juice throughout the day today. But I just think that is a fascinating story. And these are things. There's just so much work to do. I'm overwhelmed by this, and I think what you have to do is, you just have got to take it one step at a time. Just how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. That's kind of where we're at. There's just so much work to do that I don't think that you can look at the overwhelming amount of it that we're facing, and it's just, okay, let's do this. Set your sights on this. I actually, and it's a strategy that works. You want to move yourself forward. I found myself, and I don't want to share too many personal details. A number of years ago now that, my life was a mess. My marriage was a mess. I wound up getting divorced. Our finances were in an absolute mess. Wound up filing for bankruptcy in order to start over. By the way, I don't use credit anymore. I just don't. I don't use credit. I pay everything. If I cannot pay for it out of hand, I mean, if I don't have the money, then I just don't get it. I save money until I can get stuff. Really in a process of having to start over, and what I realized was, just now, again, I'm talking about my personal life. I just had to focus on one thing at a time. Okay, I'm just going to do this. And then, okay, now I've done that. All right, now I'm going to do this. And the thing is, you just put one foot in front of the other. You just keep after it. I think there's a lot the country is facing right now. And that's kind of where my mindset is. And obviously it makes me think of my, what I went through in my personal life and how everything was just overwhelming. That's how I felt. I mean, really, and this would have been over 10 years ago. My life was I just felt absolutely overwhelmed. And it was unfair to my wife at the time and, my family. And I talked to them about it. And by the way, everything is fine now, but you don't get there overnight. These things take a lot of work and effort. And I think that's where the country is. We've got to there's a lot of things to do. A lot of this is a mess. You're not going to fix it all overnight, but let's just fix it a little bit at a time. Let's do what we can when we can, and I think that kind of strategy, it absolutely makes sense. So this report on the Secret Service, the um, let, let's let's correct some of these things. Yeah, what we saw and that assassination attempt against Donald Trump, and then the guy who was hiding out on the golf course, who would have loved to have taken a shot at Donald Trump. You know, how does that stuff happen? We have just got to get back to basics, and that's really what a lot of this is about. It's one of the reasons why I'm excited about the nomination of Pete Hegseth, to the Defense Department. Let's get back to basics. What is our military all about? It's about lethality, right? It's not about social justice and any of the woke nonsense that we see out there. It's about being lethal. We want a fighting force that can aggressively defend this country. That's what job one needs to be. And unfortunately, the thinking then not only at the top, but I think then even in the rank and file military, that's got to be the thinking. I saw a video here not very long ago. This was in the last couple of weeks that I saw this video. And this is somebody up on the deck of an Air Force carrier and producing a video and about all of it. It's like, what in the hell is that? I would have never thought, when I was when I served in the South Dakota National Guard, I would have never thought about, getting the photo. Okay, everybody. Okay. This is the FDC. I was in the Fryer Direction Center. We called it the FDC. Okay, here we are in the FDC, and let's do our dance. What the hell is this? I mean, this stuff is just absolute nonsense. Now, again, cell phones were pretty far from my imagination, even at that time, that I was in the South Dakota Army National Guard. But even if they had been around, I can't imagine that would have been my thinking. It's just absolutely incredible. So all of that, to clean all of that out of the military alone, just out of the military, imagine what a job that's going to be and the focus that it's going to take. People need to quit fooling around and start being serious. That is a problem, I think, throughout the country. All of this absolute nonsense. And I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about the accused killer of Brian Thompson, but that guy's a great example. I mean, where would this guy clearly, this kind of stuff just, I find myself unable to even find words. How do you react to this? Because so much of it is just nonsensical. I think from those who have got their feet on the ground, take a look at this stuff, you're just shocked and you're amazed. And I think it's going to be tough. And I think it's going to take time. And so some of this, does the MAGA movement need to look at, do we need to look at Republicans and say, and not about whether Republicans support Trump. I think it's bigger than that. I think it's much, much bigger than that. The what are their ideals? And do they represent the ideals of the country and what the country is actually built and founded on? I think those are the things that so many of us are looking for. We're looking for a love of, of country our founding fathers had a lot of disagreements. I mean, there were vehement, arguments and disagreements, but always with respect, for each other's point of view, and crafting a country that embodied all of that, So I don't have any problem that you have people that are, don't agree on every single issue. But When it comes to Donald Trump, it's the same names over and over and over again. Donald Trump just got this incredible mandate. And so I don't care how popular Lisa Murkowski may be in her home state. Donald Trump is, you know, um, and this is where I think folks have got to, okay, if you got different thoughts, ideas, let's encourage them to bring those things up. But at the same time, we've got a mess on our hands and it's got to be cleaned up. And we need serious people and serious thought to be able to begin that process. So let's quit fooling around. Let's quit being milquetoast. This is going to take hard work. And I think it's one of the reasons why I really have talked about that a number of times on the radio show, because that's where my mindset is, hey, this is going to take hard work. I understand it's not going to happen overnight. The work is far from done. As evidenced every time you look at the headlines. I mean, it's pretty clear. There's still a lot more work to do out there. But we need people who are serious about reform. That's what it boils down to, I think. We need people who are serious about reform rather than opposing Donald Trump, so on. Those who want to reform government as it is right now and as it's been operating probably for a lot of my lifetime. That's got to be changed. Just no question about it. And Donald Trump, whether you like it or not, Donald Trump symbolizes that change. And to other Republicans, hey, you had the chance to be more outspoken, before. Why weren't you? Why didn't you take it upon yourself to become that instrument of change? It's just a little bit frustrating to me, but this is interesting. Michael's got an interesting comment here. I was a registered Democrat until recently. I started voting Republican at Obama's second term. I believe in America first, especially our military and veterans. I don't consider myself MAGA. I just think of myself now as a conservative. Michael, I'm a lot like you. If you were to ask me, okay, how do I consider myself? First and foremost, a conservative. Not a MAGA conservative, not a Trump Republican. I consider myself a conservative Republican. That's how I view myself as well. And I think we need to continue to hold everyone's feet to the fire, including Donald Trump's. If Donald Trump, now one of the issues and one of the problems I think so many of us have is we've got the leftist media that is always out there, with untruths and critical of Trump constantly. Here's the thing about criticism. There was a general manager here at one time who put it to me this way, and it's kind of a great analogy. You're out there, you got your guns loaded, and he said, but when do you shoot? When do you actually fire? So I think conservatives have to be critical also of conservatives. There's a time for that. But you also, in your criticism, I think you have to be mindful. Now, the left gives you so much to criticize them for. And I try to be selective about that. Unless they are just off the rails nuts, like Taylor Lorenz. We talked about that yesterday. Just off the wall, kind of crazy, But generally, there are a lot of things in the news, and I skip by them because, first of all, I don't think it's worth your time. And And I don't think it's worth the time of all of us to take our eye off the ball and these things that have to get done and the direction in which a lot of us want to move. And Michael, you're a great example. You're a registered Democrat. I think, for me, I was also a registered Democrat. Now, I came to that conclusion quite a number of years ago, that the Democrat Party and their ideals did not align with mine. And I began thinking, now, I grew up in a Democratic household. My folks were Democrats, and still, my mom was until she passed away. My dad still's a Democrat. And I respect that. And I want him to, like I always tell you, I want you to pursue what you believe and what you think is right. For me, I thought it's not the Democrat Party. I started listening to Republicans, started actually covering the news and knowing what was going on and knowing what people were actually saying. And that made a big difference on me. You start doing this job, now it doesn't have the same kind of impact on everyone that it has on me. Rachel Maddow would be a great example. She's drawing other conclusions. I can't explain that. But the more that I started covering events that were happening, the more I realized I agree with the Republicans a lot more than Democrats. In fact, I find, 99% of the time I would find myself in agreement with Republicans versus Democrats. And then I made a big deal on the air at the time. Now, this has been a number of years ago. I was doing the afternoon show. So this is over 20 years ago that I became a Republican. But I made a big deal of it on my afternoon show. I was on in the late afternoon on Kello at that time, doing Straight Talk. And I made a big deal of it that I changed my party affiliation, and callers, welcomed me to the Republican Party. It was a lot of fun. It's one of the days of being on the air that I really remember, just the outreach from so many of you. But that was the right move for me. I didn't do it as to be an on-air stunt, or I did it because I believed it and I was motivated to do so. And I think, Michael, you're having the same kind of political journey that I had. And I respect that. I appreciate it. Edgy's making a great point. The founding fathers understood compromise, consensus, and cooperation. A lot of people don't understand those concepts anymore. Agreed. Now, Tony says he's a MAGA Republican. And again, I respect that as well. The Shane, that's it. He said, I'm happy you like Rachel Mad Cow. That's actually not what I just said. But but I appreciate your comments. I'm trying to see if there's anything else from you guys that I missed this morning, because we're hitting the 30-minute mark here and I don't want to go. I've made a pledge to myself that we will not exceed 30 minutes a day with these, because they get started sometimes and you folks get me wound up. Stop getting me all wound up like a little tin soldier. And I'm going to leave it there for today. I'm going to ask you, please hit the like button before you leave. If you would do that, very, very much appreciated. What are we up to now on YouTube? I want to talk about this because I mentioned on the air the number of subscribers I had on YouTube, and I was one short of 300. We are now up, latest count, 310. So if you're not a subscriber and you're watching on YouTube, please consider becoming a subscriber. I would love to have you on board. Facebook is another animal. I've got a much greater following on Facebook. My thanks to you folks as well. Some of you are on both platforms, and I appreciate having you, being a part of what we're doing, being a part of our what's our coalition? We need a name for our coalition. The Belfrage Show team, we need a name. So I'm going to put you folks to work on that. Come up with something. Drop me an email anytime, greg.belfrage@kelo.com. And I will bid you so long until tomorrow. You take care. So long until then. And may God bless.